Story 1. Saint Mirror. Father Lucien Hale arrived in the village of St. Brevin in late autumn, when the trees bled copper and the hills lay silent beneath early frost. It was a sleepy, grey-stoned parish nestled between fields that hadn't known war or famine in generations. Untouched, as if forgotten by time itself. The previous priest, Father Hiram, had passed away suddenly, alone in the rectory. They said he died in his sleep, peacefully. No autopsy. No questions. Lucien was young. Too young, some whispered. Barely 30, fresh from seminary, face still soft, eyes untested. But he was earnest, and eager to serve. The first thing he noticed about the church, beyond its age, beyond the candle's smoke and faint rot of ancient wood, was the mirror. It hung behind the altar, framed in iron, tall as a man and narrow as a confessional door. Locals called it the fate glass. According to the church's old journals, the mirror did not show your reflection. Not in the earthly sense. It showed your soul's fate. Stand before it, and the surface would fog, then clear, and what stared back was something else. For most, it was vague. A shadowed version of yourself. A twist of expression. Eyes a little too wide, or smile a little too sharp. But sometimes, it was terrible. A woman saw herself aflame. A man, pale and eyeless. One girl screamed and never spoke again. Others saw nothing at all. It could change, they said. It should change, if your life did. Repentance, redemption. These things should shape your soul. That was the faith behind the mirror. That was the hope. But Father Lucien soon learned hope had little to do with it. At first, he dismissed the stories. Mirrors were symbols. Psychology, projection. The villagers were steeped in generations of folklore. Of course they would see what they feared. Then the confessions began. I saw my reflection laughing, Father. Even while I wept. I was praying for forgiveness, and the mirror. It smiled at me. Like a snake. I caught my own image whispering something I didn't hear. But I saw its lips move. More disturbing were the acts that followed. One man cut down the tree behind his house. Said he saw it burning in the background of his mirror image and thought it was a sign. A young woman confessed to cheating on her husband. Then beat herself with rose thorns for days, sobbing that the mirror would not change. It only showed her reflection turning away. Then came the man who drowned himself in the well. He had stared into the mirror for hours, eyes dry, hands clenched, whispering, "Fix it. Please, God, fix it." And when the villagers found him, they also found a note. The mirror lied. Or I did. But one of us had to go. Lucien stopped using the mirror. He covered it with black velvet. Preached faith, humility, forgiveness. All without needing to look beyond the veil. But the townspeople wouldn't let it be. They uncovered it nightly. Watched it by candlelight. Sometimes, they camped in the pews to stare into their soul's fate, whispering to it, bargaining. Lucien began to worry they wanted punishment. As if damnation was more comforting than doubt. Then, he began to dream. In the dreams, he stood before the mirror. But it did not show him himself. It showed someone else. A man in priest's robes, older, with cold gray eyes. He would stare. And smile. And then wink. Lucien began to avoid his own reflection. Polished surfaces. Water. He stopped shaving. But one night, during a storm, the velvet cloth blew from the mirror. And Lucien saw what stared back. It was not his face. It was him, in form. The right bones, the right mouth. But the eyes weren't his. They were sunken. Cold. And the thing behind them knew him. "Who are you?" Lucien whispered. The reflection mouthed something back. "I'm what's coming." Lucien stumbled back, heart rattling like a bell. He began researching obsessively. Reading Hiram's journals, parish records, even pre-Christian folklore. He found references to a mirror brought from the East during the Black Death. A gift. Or a curse. The mirror does not show fate. It chooses it, Hiram had written in a hidden entry, dated 2 days before his death. Once you see another in your place, your soul is no longer yours. You are being replaced. Lucien stopped sleeping. He noticed people in the town acting strange. A boy who had never spoken before now delivered scripture from memory. A man who had been crippled for years suddenly danced beneath the moonlight. An old widow, blind for decades, wept and said, "I can see. But not this world." Something was moving through the town. Like an infection. And always, they had recently stared into the mirror. Lucien confronted the council. Begged them to let him destroy it. They refused. The mirror had become sacred. More than that. Central. They called it a window. A revelation. A gift from God. Lucien screamed that it was lying. That it was consuming them. 1 week later, Lucien disappeared. The rectory was found empty. His journal torn. Pages missing. Only one remained. I can feel him watching from the glass. I see his face in my dreams. He walks like me. Sounds like me. The parish calls him father. But I never left. He's taken my place. And no one noticed. Because they don't see me anymore. Only him. The priest at St. Brevin is still young. Kind. Thoughtful. Hands always clasped in prayer. Eyes a little gray, a little deep. But wise beyond his years. The church is full every Sunday. People travel now. Pilgrims, curious seekers. Some say miracles have begun. Others claim to hear voices whispering in the halls. The mirror still hangs behind the altar. It is no longer covered. People line up to gaze into it. They say it's changed lately. That the reflections now smile. Even when you don't. In a locked room beneath the rectory, hidden behind stone, there is a mirror. Cracked. Buried. Forgotten. Inside, a face pounds silently on the other side of the glass. Bleeding, screaming. But no one hears. Because the other priest is already upstairs, delivering mass. Smiling. And everyone believes he's always been there. Story 2. The Window That Waits. It was the price that sold it. $400 a month, utilities included. Too good for the city. Too quiet for the street. The landlord, a pale woman named Mrs. Caldecott, spoke little and avoided eye contact. She handed Julian the key without asking for ID. Apartment 3B. Third floor. Keep the windows shut. It gets drafty. Julian Dorn had nowhere else to go. Fresh off a layoff, divorced, and nearly broke, he took it without question. 3B was small, cold, and smelled faintly of mildew. But it was clean. Mostly. One window, in the bedroom, faced the alley behind the building. Oddly, there was no building directly across. Just a stretch of blackened brick wall on the far side, like a cut left over from a structure long gone. The window had a latch. It even looked locked. But each time Julian checked, he found it cracked open by an inch. As though the room needed to breathe. The dreams began the first night. He stood at the foot of his own bed, watching himself sleep. The room looked just as it did in waking life, except the window was wide open, curtains billowing like lungs exhaling. Something stood on the fire escape outside. Tall. Very still. Too tall to be human. A silhouette blurred at the edges, like it wasn't fully present. Its hands rested on the window frame, long fingers bent inward like hooks. It didn't move. It just watched. He woke up choking, heart pounding, the window slightly open. He didn't remember opening it. Julian nailed it shut on the fourth day. Even hammered the frame with boards. He didn't care if it was paranoia. He'd stopped sleeping anyway. But that night, he heard ticking in the walls. Not rats. Not pipes. A deliberate, rhythmic ticking. Like something counting seconds. Followed by scratching. Delicate. Hungry. He tore open the walls behind the bed. Nothing. He slept on the couch that night, until he woke up in bed again, unsure how he'd gotten there. And the boards were on the floor, pried off with perfect precision. The building had no online footprint. No reviews. No name. The mail slot still bore a faded label. M. Vel. Julian asked Mrs. Caldecott. She tensed. He moved out. Quiet man. Gone before you arrived. Julian pressed. Did he leave anything behind? She lied, poorly. No. He searched the apartment again. Found a panel loose beneath the radiator. Inside was a notebook. Leather-bound, water-stained. Filled with scrawled entries. It's not the window. It's what looks through it. I saw its face once. There were too many eyes. All of them mine. The dreams aren't dreams. They're rehearsals. At the bottom of the final page. Don't cover the window. It doesn't like that. It needs to see. Julian stopped leaving the apartment. Every time he tried, something pulled him back. A forgotten wallet, a sudden nosebleed, a missed step on the stairwell. It was as if the apartment didn't want him gone. The window remained the same, locked, then slightly open, then fully wide without explanation. He left a camera recording it overnight. At 3:07 a.m., static consumed the feed. When the picture returned, the window was open, and someone, something, stood inside the room, staring directly into the lens. Its face was distorted, but one thing was clear. It had Julian's eyes. Julian no longer dreamed. He woke inside the dreams. The room felt real. The window always open. The figure always closer. He could smell its breath now. Sulfur, mold, something wet and old. Each time, it stepped a little farther in. Each time, it looked more like him. The notebook's voice whispered in his head. It doesn't want to enter. It wants to replace. When it knows enough about you, it will put you in the window. And you'll be the thing outside. Julian began to lose time. He would blink and find hours gone. Sometimes days. Food rotted. Clocks ran backwards. Neighbors stopped acknowledging him in the hall. The lights flickered only in his apartment. One night, he called the police. They found the room empty. Except for a nailed-shut window and a camera pointed at the bed. The footage showed Julian sleeping. Then waking. Then walking to the camera, smiling, and saying in a voice not quite his own. He doesn't live here anymore. You can still rent apartment 3B. The landlord won't ask for much. No ID. No paperwork. Just a signature. You'll find it cheap. Quiet. Undisturbed. You might even find the old notebook, tucked beneath the floorboards, though the last pages are new now. The handwriting is yours. They say every window opens somewhere. But not all of them are meant to. Some are doors. Some are mirrors. And some are watching you right now, waiting for the moment you forget which side you're on. So go ahead. Look up from this story. And check your window. Is it open? Are you sure? Story 3. Through Her Eyes. Elena Mirek had never seen her mother's face. Born blind from a rare degenerative condition, she grew up in darkness softened only by sound, scent, and intuition. But she never pitted herself. Her world, though obscured to others, was rich in texture. At 34, she was content, even proud. A musician. A poet. A woman who had built her life without the scaffolding of sight. Until the call came. "We can give you vision, Elena," said Dr. Klein, from the Greyhaven Neural Research Facility. He explained the procedure. Synthetic ocular implants, mapping signals directly to the visual cortex, powered by an AI developed to reconstruct visual input in real time. The technology, he admitted, was experimental. Risky. The implants were still in closed trials. But Elena, tired of the question always lingering in the silence. What is light? What is blue? What is a face? Agreed. The procedure was excruciating. Bone, nerve, and silicon fused into her skull like metal roots. She spent a week in darkness again as the implants calibrated. Then came the moment. Dr. Klein stood before her. The assistant counted down. The software activated. She saw. But what she saw was not what she expected. At first, she told herself it was just the adjustment. People looked wrong. Too tall. Too thin. Their eyes were always open too wide. Their mouths didn't move when they spoke, yet she heard words. Faces seemed to pulse, as though their skin barely contained something beneath it. When she asked Dr. Klein about it, he smiled, too wide, and said, "Your brain is learning. Don't worry. The system adapts to your reality." She asked her mother to describe the room they were sitting in. A pale blue wall, lace curtains, and your father's clock. Elena looked at the same room. She saw gray walls, shifting like static. The curtains were colorless. The clock was there, but it ticked backward, its hands spinning in erratic bursts. She reached for her mother's hand. Warm. Real. But her vision showed black tendrils coiled beneath her mother's skin, twitching with each beat of her pulse. At night, her vision didn't go black. The implants never turned off. She began to see shadows where there were no lights. People passed her on the street and their reflections in windows didn't match their movements. She watched a man laugh with his daughter in the park. His mouth stretched wider and wider until it cracked. No one else reacted. She told Dr. Klein. His response? "You're seeing residual layers of perceptual construction. Ghosts of parallel cognitive models. Think of them like echoes." But Elena began to suspect it wasn't just echoes. It started with the dreams. Except they didn't feel like dreams. In the dark of her room, she felt watched. Not in the vague sense. Specifically. Like something was looking out through her eyes. She stopped sleeping. Stayed in bright rooms. Drank coffee until her hands trembled. But when she blinked, sometimes, time stuttered. Lights flickered. People froze mid-motion. And one night, she caught her own reflection watching her with a different expression than her face wore. Desperate, she accessed the implant's diagnostic data. A system even the Greyhaven staff didn't expect her to know how to use. What she found was horrifying. The implants were not cameras. They were receivers. There were no optical sensors. The AI wasn't reconstructing what she saw. It was relaying visual data from a remote source. One untraceable, unnamed. And the code referenced something chilling. Input, Aeon stream. Origin, Observer Entity 9. Layer unknown. She copied the file and confronted Dr. Klein. He denied it all, but she saw it in his face. The thing beneath the skin, that twisted grin, the subtle flicker of something other in his pupils. That night, a new line appeared in her implant interface. "You see well, Elena. Keep watching." Elena spiraled. She considered suicide. Considered gouging the implants out with a kitchen knife. But she couldn't look away. Because the more she watched, really watched, the more she saw the veil pulling back. The sky wasn't blue. It was black. Layered with pulsing lattices of energy, as if something on the outside was pressing inward. She realized, she was not looking at the world. She was a window. The entity behind the Aeon stream, something older than language, older than thought, had no eyes of its own. It borrowed hers. And it didn't see the world like humans did. It saw patterns. Weak points. People reduced to fractured symmetries, like insects beneath glass. One evening, Elena wandered into the woods behind her childhood home. The implants buzzed softly. A new update had arrived. Unprompted. Unstoppable. Phase 2 initiated. Host acceptance, true. She screamed, clawed at her head, fell to the ground. Her eyes flooded with sight beyond reason. She saw people not as people, but as soft containers, their lives looped like strings of code, destined to unravel. She saw a great shape, vast and formless, moving behind the stars. The thing that watched. It whispered not in words, but in thought. "You are my vessel now." And for a moment, she felt something slip from her. Her will. Like a breath she couldn't hold. Then it was over. She awoke on her knees, staring at the sunrise. But the sun was gone. In its place was a circular eye, open and pulsing. Elena returned to the city. Smiling. Seeing. She told no one. Now, when she passes strangers on the street, she recognizes others like her. People with that faint static flicker behind their gaze. And every so often, a child will look at her and scream. Because some part of them still sees what's looking out from behind her eyes. And the worst part? She no longer knows which version of the world was real. But something ancient now does. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe for more Rogue Nightmares videos.